Good afternoon. It's November 14th, 2023. I'm Thomas Toff with the West Michigan Low-Income Taxpayer Clinic, and I'm here to talk about what to do when someone fraudulently claims your dependent for taxes. Now, before we get started, I want to say that this is not legal advice. Nothing in this presentation is a substitute for a private consultation with an attorney regarding a legal problem. But now that we got that out of the way, let's get started. Every year, lots of dependents are fraudulently claimed. Claiming a dependent and related tax credits on a tax return can generate big benefits from head of household filing status. You get more standard deduction and less taxable income, child tax credit, larger earned income credit, etc. These big benefits are an incentive for people to claim your dependents. Sometimes it's fraud committed by an unknown person who uses a dependent's Social Security number to claim a refund. Other times, a relative, foster care provider, former boyfriend, or spouse claims a dependent and wrongfully receives a refund. It's important to know that if someone already claimed your dependent, is blocked. Electronic filing, or e-filing, is the process of submitting tax returns via the internet. You can't e-file for a tax year if your dependent was already claimed by someone else for that same year. If you try to e-file, the IRS system will reject the return and send a message that the dependent has already been claimed. The rejection message will not say who claimed your dependent because of IRS privacy rules. So what do? If you go to file a return and claim a dependent and it says someone's already claimed your dependent and your e-filing comes back, well, first double check your return. If someone else already claimed your dependent, double check that you meet the requirements to claim the dependent. I've given 3 sources here we can actually check IRS materials to help you determine if you're entitled to claim the dependent. The first is an IRS Interactive Tax Assistant. I've given a website where this is at. That's where you can log into the IRS system or go to the website, put in some information about yourself, and it will walk you through questions before telling you whether it thinks you can claim a dependent or not. There's an IRS publication 501, Dependents, Standard Deduction, and Filing Info. I provided a link where you can go there, and it talks about all the rules on whether you can claim a dependent or not. And third, I have mentioned the instructions to Form 1040. There's a who qualifies as your dependent section. I've given a link here, which currently is a draft to the 2023 tax year instructions, but you can go to the instructions of the Form 1040, and there's a section on who qualifies as your dependent, and it can help walk you through questions to determine whether you are the person who should be claiming someone. If you learn that you don't meet the requirements, you can update your tax return and just e-file it without dependent. But what if you find you are entitled to claim the dependent? If someone else already claimed your dependent, but you meet the requirements to claim that dependent, you should mail a paper return to the IRS. When the IRS gets your return, it will investigate all returns involved and determine who should be claiming the dependent. A common mistake with rejected e-filings is to just remove the dependent from the return and then e-file the return without the dependent. So yeah, the return gets filed quickly and may avoid the IRS investigation, but it usually means you will owe more tax or get less refund. Another common mistake is to simply not file any tax return. If you would be entitled to a refund, you'll miss out on it. If you would owe, then the IRS may file a return in your name with tax debt, penalties and interest owed. Now, if you are going to be filing a paper return, here's some tips. First, use the United States Postal Service certified mail return receipt requested to mail your tax return. This will provide proof that it was received. That will eliminate any question about whether the IRS got it or not. You can also use certain IRS designated private delivery services, and I provided a link for that. Other services like FedEx, UPS that you can use, but you can only use some of their services. So it's important if you decide to go that route to carefully check the list at this link I'm providing. Make sure that you're using an approved service. A second tip is that with your return, include a cover letter explaining your situation and include evidence proving that you have the right to claim the dependent to help the IRS with this investigation. Third, with your return, consider attaching an IRS form 14039. That's an identity theft affidavit. But you would consider attaching this if the misuse of your dependent's information was not by a parent or guardian. I provided a link to the IRS online newsroom that talks about the guide to identity theft and this form 14039. And then fourth, keep copies of everything you send to the IRS and of any mailing receipts. Now, in the second tip I mentioned, including evidence. The IRS has a form 886-H-DEP, which lists documents that can support your dependent claim. On this slide is a link where you can access a copy of this IRS form that provides that list of supporting documents. And documents generally focus on relationship, that's your relationship to the dependent, residency, your address, and the dependent's address during the year the return is for, support, how much support you gave the dependent during the year the return was for. And I've underlined during the year the return is for. This is important. When you're sending documents to the IRS to support your claim for a dependent for any particular tax year, the documents for residency and support need to be related to the year the return is for. So if you have a return for 2022 and you decide to send some evidence that the dependent lived with you and that you supported the dependent, if you send something showing that the dependent lived with you from 2019 and that you supported them in 2019, that's not going to work. It's for the wrong year. So it's very important when you're gathering documents for residency and support that you make sure that they relate to the year the return is for. This is a mistake I see a lot where people spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, and they send a bunch of forms to the IRS, but many of them are just for the wrong year and the IRS does not accept them. Now, the type of documents may include birth certificates, school and medical records, divorce decrees, copies of leases, utility bills, and other financial records. Here's a screenshot of that form 886-H-DEP. It goes on for 2-3 pages, but this is what it looks like. And I would recommend that if you are going to be sending evidence to support your dependency claim, that you pull this up or get a copy of this form and then read it through so you know what the IRS is looking for and what you can send. Now, with that said, lastly, I should say, don't ignore IRS letters or notices. Once you mail your paper return, you may receive various notices from the IRS. Read all IRS notices and, if needed, respond by any deadlines. And there are a couple of common notices I wanted to mention. There's a notice CP 87A. This is sent by the IRS because someone else claimed your dependent, and it will include the last 4 digits of the dependent's Social Security number. If you get this notice and you're entitled to claim your dependent, don't respond to the notice. But if it turns out you made a mistake and you are ineligible to claim the dependent, then you'll need to file an amended return. This particular notice will be sent to you and the other taxpayer who claimed the dependent. Another common notice is called a notice CP75A. The IRS sends this when they're auditing your return and need more information to verify the earned income credit, your dependents, and the filing status you claimed. If you don't respond or cannot provide the requested information, the IRS will not allow the audited items, and the IRS will send you an exam report showing proposed changes to your tax return. So it's important. Don't ignore anything that comes from the IRS. If there's deadlines in it, make sure you respond by those deadlines. But it's not uncommon for someone to have gotten letters from the IRS like this, taken no action at all, and then they'll come to us months later. And at that point, it's a different situation you're in because the deadlines have all passed on the exam or on what the IRS wanted. So it's much better if you don't ignore anything and promptly respond if needed. Now, with that said, are there any questions about this? Okay, great. Well, I thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a really great rest of your day. All right, bye-bye now.